Twitter, not like you have, the comparison was also made to a president who said, oh, I mean, he felt very violated by Twitter, and what he did was decide to ban Twitter. So you have Elon Musk saying, oh no, it's a different thing entirely. So all of that comparison has been put out. But we already know where he stands. I'm looking at all of the things that he's talked about, freedom of speech, yes. Long tweets and all of that, authentication of humans and what have you. So it's going to be a change. Some people haven't really embraced it. Some people think
change, but the fact is that some changes could be very positive over time.
No, not necessarily. So if you not necessarily, if you talk about positive, what positive are we talking about? Even as we are on Twitter, it feels like it's very toxic and it feels like it's not properly regulated. So you have a lot of regulations. And that's why, like I mentioned earlier on, you have the former president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, being banned from Twitter. Now, Donald Trump has said that whether or not you have Elon Musk buying Twitter, it doesn't change anything. He's not coming back, right? Now, he's Elon Musk is very big on having freedom of speech. And like he has categorically mentioned in his tweets over time, he talked about the fact that it's very vital to democracy. And so what freedom are we talking about here? Are we going to get to a point where we are going to really have some kind of comments like hashtag Hitler did not do anything?
I think
you know that if those kind of tweets come up, there's going to be some kind of restrictions. And that's what happened to Donald Trump. And so people are beginning to say, so are we going to get back to the era where you have those kind of tweets coming back on board?
I'm sure there would be a way to actually control all of this, in as much as he owns a majority share in Twitter. Now, the sole decision of what happens on Twitter then it does not really lie on him.
Really? No, how do you even explain that? Because Twitter is now, I mean, if everything is being done, this is a bid, everyone said that this is a negotiation. Twitter at once upon a time said, we're not going to. After a while, Twitter is dealing right now. So the question now, I mean, the real deal is if everything gets, correct, I mean, everything goes well, all things being equal, that's what would happen.
Yes.
It therefore means that Twitter is now a private-owned company.
Yes.
He owns and controls Twitter, and you know what happens when you have,
but he should also be aware
monopoly.
that he's actually in it to make business, and if you're making decisions, you don't just put your personal interest first. At the end of the day, you should also consider the bottom line, because if you're making decisions and you're losing business, you might want to have a rethink.
I understand, but let's also look at the fact that, for instance, come back to Nigeria. Once upon a time, you had telecommunication. I mean, certain service providers dominating the entire scene. And you know what monopoly does to an economy?
Yes, but eventually the market was widened, was thrown open, and you can see healthy competition.
So do we have healthy? The question now is there a healthy competition for Twitter?
Oh, well,
you have what's his name again?
Don't even go there. Don't even start, Mercy. All right, let's just leave Twitter so we can actually move on to other top trend. Actually, just one more top trending. And this time around, a particular lawyer is suing the president over the issue of fuel scarcity in the country. And he said it is because the president also doubles as the Minister of Petroleum Resources, and for the country to be having all of this scarcity, that means he has actually not done well as the minister of that particular ministry.
So yes, it's very commendable. I mean,
just wonder how far this would go.
No, first of all, you must appreciate the bravery of the lawyer. I mean, it's a very brave one. It's a welcome development.
Yeah.
But we also need to understand, as much as he's a legal practitioner, one would expect that he should understand what the law says. I really do not know, but I stand to be corrected. The Constitution has not made any provision. I mean, there's no fault in the Constitution, or there's nowhere in the Constitution that states that the president cannot have, does not play a dual role, like he doesn't hold two offices or position. So the Constitution has not stated that.
There's nothing wrong. No, it's not. I mean, it's not an illegality being.
So that's what we're saying, because at the end of the day, it's the issue of legal. Is it legal? Is it illegal? And some quotas or some quota have actually argued that this suit is actually going to be dead on arrival, because if you look at the Constitution, the Constitution has not specified that the president cannot be the president and be a minister or act in dual capacity.
Well, is
That's
he
what I'm
actually
coming from.
challenging the merit? Let's look at the merit of the case right now. Is he actually challenging the fact that the president is actually the Minister of Transportation, or basically the capacity that in which he's acted, and the fact that he has not performed?
So what he's suing for is suing for the fact that Nigerians have suffered. There's been a lot of pain, cost, hardship during that period where you had fuel scarcity, which was necessitated by the fact that you have some element in the system importing adulterated products into the market, and that caused scarcity. And so you understand that the president is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He also doubles as the Minister of Petroleum Resources.
Yes. So if there's ineptitude, mismanagement, it actually, the whole
but at the end of, yes, so it lies on what premise? I mean, that suit, as much as it's morally right, a lot of people, you don't forget the conversation that we had. It feels like Nigerians, we move all the time, including the media. We have already moved from this story. We're going on to other stuff. Nobody's talking about it. So we constantly screamed and talked about the fact that who is responsible for having us importing adulterated products that are not up to standard, and that has caused a lot of hardship and for Nigerians. Someone should answer to it.
We should be getting some explanation from the minister, from the president himself.
Yeah, where you have the president himself, presiding over. There should be a lot of heads rolling. That has been the question. So he's suing now. How do you explain all of that? First of all, how do you explain it? Because the president he's suing the president because he's the president, he's also the minister. So in what sense? Now the issue of citizenship, if you begin to look at the issue of, basic amenities for citizenship, I mean, a matter of provision of good governance to citizens, constitutionally, it's not justiciable. So you can't really hold it. It brings us back to the issue of saying that it would just be a moral issue. And morality is not law. It's very sad for us. So that's why a lot of persons have actually cried out. If you look at it, we constantly say that our constitution has not done us any good. You look at those gray areas, I mean, that's the reality. So fingers across. This is me just preempting and saying, this is what we're looking at. So fingers across, let's see how far the suit actually goes.
Yeah, we'll see how far it goes. But the whole idea is that at the end of the day, Nigerians should not have to suffer all of this, issues that have lingered on for so long. The issue of fuel scarcity, it's as though it has become part of, Nigeria, as in part of what we know, part of what we live with, as if it's just a norm. That's actually an anomaly. We should not be groaning, under the pangs of fuel scarcity in the country. We shouldn't.
No, so which is totally, I mean, what happened is wrong, is not acceptable. But like we rightly mentioned, the Constitution governs the activities of a nation. And if you look at everything, so you're going to have all of this argument coming for that. Where does the Constitution talk about good governance and citizens going through pains and hardship? Right. I don't know. So it's just going to be, a very hard one, but very brave. First of all, of Festus, commendable. And that's the size of our top trending this morning. We'll definitely take a break. When we return, we'll be heading straight to the pages of a national dailies. Please stay with us as we return tomorrow with more interesting conversations, making the rounds in different spaces.
For upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Welcome back. It is still the breakfast on Plus TV Africa.
Well, it's time for us to take you through the pages of our national dailies. We call it Off the Press, and we have Chris Kane and Wendu, who joins the conversation in no time. It's good to have you join us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper, and their attention will be on the top stories, the banner and bold caption right here. Now, looking at the first, it talks about after President Muhammadu Buhari's order, security agents go after all illegal refineries. That is very interesting. And 2023 presidency. Citing fairness, Southern Middle Belt leaders make case for Southeast. So it's just going to be a lot for us, but we hope that Chris shares his thoughts as we proceed. Go and put your house in order, Fenifere tells Igbo politicians. Northern stakeholders won against pitting North against South. That's also underneath the bold caption. And just before we move away, Nigerian court awards 1 billion naira against truck owner for blocking highway. Abba Kyari, NDLEA arrest drug baron behind 3 billion naira tramadol deal. And you have reps postpone resumption of plenary for whatever reason. That's also making the bold caption this morning. And you have world richest man Elon Musk buys Twitter for $44 billion. Elon Musk buys Twitter for $44 billion. It was just a conversation we had at Top Trending this morning. Police officer kills 2, injures orders at Lagos party. Very sad headline right here, but that's the much we can take this morning on the Leadership.
Away from the Leadership newspaper, we'll slide on next to the Punch newspaper. And the main story this morning, Electoral Act, Amici Ngige others risk disqualification over a failure to resign. With several riders there, we will disqualify them at screening if they fail to resign party chieftain. APC submits registered to INEC ahead of deadline, commences sale of forms today. Ruling party awaits court judgment on controversial section, fails to refund aspirants. Above the masthead, federal government shortlists bidders for Lagos Badagry Semel, Lagos Abeokuta, 10 other highways. All right, presidency is saying group the first as Ohaneze Adebanjo won Jonathan. Okay, they're talking about the presidency. Group the first as Ohaneze Adebanjo won Jonathan. Blame military, not Kuka, for Tucano's delay. Northern Elders Forum, they're quoted on that one. Manufacturers borrow 1.03 trillion naira from banks. Debts heat 4.2 trillion naira. Okay, Kyari, drug baron with 103 bank accounts nabbed at Lagos airport. Ondo lawmaker fumes as power cable kills 4 playing children. Sexual act. Chrisland, 10-year-old pupil, deletes social media videos, apologizes. All right, let's see if we can take 1 or 2 more. Alafin, contenders begin applications, submission after 8 days. Nigeria's MSMEs dropped by 2 million naira, or by 2 million rather, in 4 years. That's according to Smedden. Those are the bulk of the stories you can find on the Punch newspaper this morning.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Independent newspaper this morning. 2023 presidential election. I will betray Nigerians if I don't contest. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is quoted to say on this. Okay, very interesting. NDLEA arrests suspects behind 3 billion naira illicit drug linked to Abba Kyari's team. Federal government concessioned 42.74 billion naira or billion metric tons of bitumen. That's what you also find aboard caption. PDP women plot winning strategy ahead of 2023 elections. And Pencon reviews regulation on retirement and terminal benefits. Elon Musk strikes as $44 billion deal to buy Twitter. Telecom sector's GDP growth rate faces a decline. And that's also another bold header there. PDP Northern stakeholders reject Saraki Mohammed as consensus presidential aspirant. Nnamdi Kanu sues chief judge and register over secret trial. These are the headlines on the Daily Independent.
All right, away from that one, let's check out the Nation newspaper. All right, PDP ex-governors aspirants reject consensus candidate. Obi Ngige Umai Anyim rally ethnic nationalities for Southeast presidential bid. Igbo leaders deny Wike Amechi. Rivers governor donates 200 million naira in Kaduna State. All right, APC begins sale of forms in Abuja and State. 3 directors fired. All right, suspects in OAU students' death slumps in court. World richest man Elon Musk buys Twitter for $44 billion. Alafin's body buried according to tradition, says Oyo High Chief. These are all of the stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning.
All right, let's have Chris Kende when you join the conversation this morning.
Yeah, once again.
All right, good morning. Let's take a look at the leadership. It talks about the 2023 presidency, and the argument has been citing fairness. Southern Middle Belt leaders make case for the Southeast. The case is that if you look at the conversation has been that it's a gentleman agreement. And so the Southeast is saying it has to be fair if we're looking at this agreement over time. What are your thoughts?
I totally agree with all fairness, equity and fairness. I think without any doubt, the Southeast, the political zone, is well grounded for the presidency in 2023. And don't forget the fact that practically all parts of the country have a taste of that since 1999. In 1999, it was the Southwest with Olusegun Obasanjo. After Olusegun Obasanjo, he moved to the North, as it were. Then the South also got it when Yar'Adua died. Goodluck Jonathan took over. After Jonathan, the North through President Muhammad Buhari is in the South. Don't forget that Nigeria is more like a sitting on tripod, normally we say the North, which is normally we call Hausa, the West we call the Yorubas, and the East, South is called Igbos. But as it is presently, it's obvious that without any doubt that yes, the Southeast deserve the presidency. And as I've always said, the presidency is not just gotten on a la carte. It's not something that you are sat on the table just for the fun of it. You have to work hard for it. Even as a region, you have to get the kind of support from other parts of the country. You have to be able to convince the other parts of the country on why you should be voted for. Not just because you think you're an Igbo man and you just sit back and feel that the president should be just given to you. So the Igbo Southeast contestants should try to reach out to their brothers and sisters in other parts of the country, in the Southwest, in the North Central, in the Northeast, in the Northwest, even in the South, so that they can be able to convince them on the need for them to be given the opportunity to be the president of Nigeria. So,
Chris,
then also,
Chris Kende Wandu,
yeah.
Let's just cut it in a bit here. So we understand that the issue of zoning rotation of the presidency is an agreement, is an arrangement that's been going on for a while, and it might not have any constitutional backing, but that's what happened, and that's practically to some point because you have political parties projecting all of that. So when you say that the Igbo man or candidate from the Southeast should go about lobbying, in what capacity should there be lobbying? Should the parties involved now, the different political parties that we have, not understand or not imbibe that? Should they be allowed to just take a stroll within the party structure to go begin to lobby with their counterparts in the different parts of the country?
The politics is about lobbying. Politics is about lobbying. You have to lobby.
No. My question here is: should it not be a constant for the political parties to understand that it has to go to the Southeast? At what point do you have this candidate, especially like you have mentioned, the Southeast, going about lobbying to who? Lobbying with who? And
you said that it is not constitutional. But let me go correct that a little bit. In the constitution of the PDP, I think there is this issue of zoning that is enshrined in their constitution. But that was not cast on stone. And when I say lobbying, I mean in politics, even for any part of this country, even if you are contesting in your own local government, even if you are contesting as a councillor in your local government, you still have to lobby people. You have to lobby people. You have to talk to people. You have to make sure that people vote for you. You have to canvass. Don't forget, you are not the only candidate. So lobbying is part of politics. So what I'm saying in essence is that there is the need to be able to reach out to other parts. And that is what you've seen they've been doing. Most of them have been moving around, going to all parts of the country. You've seen Peter Obi in the north. You saw him I think it was in Akure or Ekiti some few days ago. You saw Payo Sanyim also moving around. He has been to the west, he has been to the north, he has been to the south, and you saw some other politicians from that. So that is what I'm talking about. But what you're also talking about, even within the party itself, there's what is called consultation. That is why you hear them say, "Oh, I'm consulting." Remember when Ashwaju said he was going to contest? He said he was consulting. Atiku said he was contesting. He said he was consulting. Peter Obi said he was contesting. He's contesting. He says he's consulting. So that consultation is part of lobby. You'll be able to lobby people, go within and outside your political party. That is what politics is all about. So when I say that you have to lobby, it is not enshrined. The fact that you think that you are the best candidate does not necessarily mean that the party will give you the ticket. You have to do the needful. You have to do some convincing. And in the course of doing that, then you have to convince. Don't forget that primaries is a political stuff. It is within the political parties to be able to do that. But even at that, there are some people that are not even in the political parties that also determine some of the things that happen in the political parties. You'll be shocked how powerful some certain traditional rulers, some retired generals, some retired politicians are when it comes to the issue of politics. So that is how it rolls.
All right, let's check out some other papers. Let's look at the Nation newspaper, if we would. The main, the lead story that is PDP ex-governors aspirants reject consensus candidate that several riders, Obi Ngege Umai and Imrali, ethnic nationalities for Southeast presidential bid. Igbo leaders deny Wike Amechi, Rivers governor donate. Okay, but let's talk about the issue of consensus candidate or candidacy. And a whole lot of people believe that it may mar the PDP's chances ahead of 2023 if they actually look in that particular direction. What are your thoughts, really?
Politics is a dynamic game as it is, and it is always, you never say never until it's over. Let's start with you are talking about PDP. Don't forget that some northern candidates, about 4 of them, came together and said that I'm moving around the country in order to be able to come up with a consensus candidate among themselves. You're talking of Saraki, you are talking of Bala Mohammed, you are talking of Governor Tambua, and one other candidate, and they moved around. At the end of it all, certain elements within the Northern Elders Forum, specifically, I think the chairman, came up with 2 names and said that is what they are, the people that they've chosen and they are supporting for 2020. They're talking of Saraki and Bala Mohammed. Immediately that name came out, so many people from the north denied that even within that Elders Forum. I remember that the secretary of that forum also came out and said that they are not part of it. That is just the personal opinion of the leader of that forum. Then you also see someone like a Governor Tambua of Sokoto State say that he is not part of that there was never a time that such. So it is always that. But politics, as I said, is dynamic. There will always be trade horses, what you call trade horses, in the constituency. At the end of it all, I personally, if you ask me, I will say that every one of them should go into the field, irrespective. When you say consensus, it's also helping disfranchising some people from testing their popularity. I would rather say that every one of them should go to the field and let the best candidate within the ranks. But that in itself does not foreclose the fact that certain elements or certain things comes to play. The North are gearing up. PDP has not come out specifically to say whether their presidential ticket will be zoned. Don't forget there was a committee that was set up by the PDP, headed by Governor Otom of Benue State, which came out with a report. And that report was handed over to the NEC of PDP. We were expecting that the NEC would have come out by now to state his stand on that. That, although the snippet that report that was reported in the media is that they are throwing it open, but Governor Otom came out to say that, well, let us not jump the gun and let the NEC. I don't know when the NEC of the PDP is going to come out with their zoning array, whether it's going to be zoning, whether it will be thrown open or the rest of them. But you can see that everybody is campaigning. Those from the north and those from the south are campaigning for the presidency. So if the PCB doesn't zone it only, that means everybody's to the field. For the APC, I think it's a bit much easier because it seems and the way it looks that APC already have zoned his presidential ticket to the south. So it's between those of the south to determine whether it's going to the south-south, whether it's going to the southeast or it's going to the southwest. But in the next few days, we will know how this will pan out. Don't forget that the primaries is going to come up within the next 1 month or thereabout. And by then, we would have known the candidates of the political parties.
All right. So, Chris, let's take a look at the Daily Independent as well this morning. And quickly on that, it talks about the issue of betrayal. The vice president is saying that he will betray Nigerians if he doesn't contest, for the position of the president.
Well, the vice president will not betray me. I'm in Nigeria. So I don't know those I'm going to betray. Because personally, if I'm to judge the vice president with what the government, which is part of, he's the vice president, has achieved in the past 7 years, that is abysmal failure completely. If I'm going to score this government by his promises in 2015 and 2019, I will score them less than 35%. That to me is total failure. So, but when he says, but if you not want to judge him as an individual, well, there is in politics that's what is called collective responsibility. So he cannot detach himself from whatever has happened in the past 7 years. But it is his right. The question we always ask is, does he have the right to contest? Of course he does. Is he eminently qualified to contest? Of course he's eminently qualified. But the issue of betrayal, I don't know where it's coming from, and those that will be betrayed. Personally, I will not be betrayed, whether he's contesting or not. What we need now is those that have the capacity and not be able to go back to Egypt, as it were, because in the last 7 years, Nigerians have not found it rosy at all. All the promises made were not fulfilled. From what was the first one in 20, I can't remember. Then they said they are taking us to the next level in 2019. We can see the level whether the next level was to the top or to the bottom, it's left for the Nigerians to say.
All right, CK, and let's look at other stories. On the Punch newspaper, it's as though section 84, subsection 12 is still actually generating mixed reactions from Nigerians. And Amechi Ngige orders a risk disqualification over failure to resign. There are several writers to that story. We will disqualify them at screening if they fail to resign. A party chieftain is quoted on that. Now, so let's talk about this Amechi Ngige and others risking disqualification as a result of them not resigning from their positions right now. How do you react to all of this?
I think the political parties are just trying to be smart, and to me, which is a good one. Because yes, in as much as a high court in Umuahia gave a judgment that session of the electoral act should be expunged, and the AGF at a point was almost doing that, But the National Assembly said they are going to go on appeal, which I think they have done. And the risk here is that if they don't resign, as stated by the Electoral Act, despite the ruling of the High Court in Umuahia, and the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court eventually gave a judgment in favor of the Electoral Act, what that means that anybody that came up or that was elected or selected through the primaries and rest of them may not be able to maybe disqualify at the election. That in itself is a huge risk for any political party to take. And some of the governors are already doing the right thing, because most of them have been asked the aid and political appointees who are interested in contesting any of the position in 2023 to resign now. That is the best thing to do. So for me, the political parties are doing the right thing. It is right, the Electoral Act has been passed into law, despite whatever a court have said for now. But it is not over until it's over. It's just a high court in Umuahia. We are still going to have this getting to the Supreme Court. So the wise thing for anybody to do now is for them to be able to, the political party, to ask whoever is going to contest to resign. And for me, that is the honorable thing to do. If you are going to contest for election, why would you still want to hold on to a political position as a political appointee? So I think they should do the needful. But if they want to take the risk, all well and good, let them take the risk. If you are going to pay 100 million to get a nomination form for APC as a presidential candidate, and at the end of it, you come to realize that the court has passed a judgment that you cannot contest, there goes your 100 million or 40 million, as it is the case with a PDP and other positions.
All right, let's also look at it. I mean, it's a conversation that's generating a lot of reactions. But before then, we look at the issue of telecom sector and their GDP growth rate facing a decline. Do you also think that with the federal government giving the injunction that 72 million subscribers should be banned from making outgoing calls, or have been banned from making outgoing calls, have also contributed to the decline of growth that telecom sectors are faced with?
Of course it does, because but we have to look at the issues holistically. We are talking of security here. The greatest problem facing Nigeria currently is not just the economy, but security. And the federal government is willing to think that they can be able to nip this in the bud if all SIMs are registered. What I just believe that everybody should make sure that these SIMs are registered. Yes, the telecom companies will be affected, but that is not going to be the only issue, because also don't forget that the telecom sector is also facing serious challenges. It has to do with the economy. And let me look at it from the simplest of terms. If you know what it takes to generate power, most of them depends on the individual or private generation of power. Each of those base stations have 2 generators each, most of them. And you can multiply that across Nigeria. If you have a stable power, then you realize that their overhead will be practically reduced. But they practically depend on generating set and the rest of them. That in itself is a fact. Also look at the naira to the dollar. Most of the things that also the equipment they use are imported. And the more the naira fluctuates against the dollar, that in itself is a huge problem. So, full factor all this together, coupled with about 70 million lines that have not been linked, then that is a but why this is happening, you can also see that as massive growth across the globe. Just yesterday, Elon Musk, as rightly said in doing your opening, bought over Twitter for about $44 billion. That is huge. That is how huge the market is. And if we can be able to do the much we can do and be able to assist this sector, it will really help us. It will help our GDP and also help help out in some of the problems we're having seriously in our foreign exchange.
All right, let's talk more about the issue of insecurity. Just on Sunday, the president was in the news and he blamed, the Bishop of Sokoto Diocese and other Nigerians, for the delivery of the Tucano special jets. But there is actually now a reaction from the Northern Elders Forum, and they are saying that blame military, not Kuka, for Tucano's delay. Do you agree with the NEF?
That statement by the president is the most absurd statement I ever had in my life. You blame Father Bishop Kuka for the delay in getting the Tucano, and I'm trying to say, which kind of power does Father Bishop Kuka have? You are elevating him to the position of probably a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And why having to say all this well? Just because he gave a sermon or he made a statement during the Easter period and speaking the truth, what he has to go and look at every factor of every single statement, every single line of that statement he made. We are Nigerians, we know the truth, and we know that the clergy say the truth. But the government will always try to bury his head like the ostrich and try to believe that all is well. Is it not in this country that a few weeks ago that Minister of Information told us that Nigeria is safer, and within this, there was an attack of a train between Abuja and Kaduna, and within that same period, over 106 Nigerians were buried in a mass grave in Plateau State. That is just one out of so many other killings all around. So I see no reason why the government, instead of looking at the message, are trying to look at the message. And because I've always asked that, must you react to everything? Must you react to everything? There is a communication, there is always a communication deficit within the presidency. And that I put on the laps of the president, because it seems that his information managers don't even know what to say. They don't even know what to do at the right time. Instead of looking at what I've been saying, you are laying, they say, first of all, the presidency blame Father Kuka, then also blame some elements in the US for that. That to me is absurd. That is not the true position of things. Let us look at the situation that everybody is worried with the insecurity situation there, and that is what should be worrying the president. If also if he said that was why did he give a marching order to the service chief again to make sure that they need this in the port? Why did he give the marching order? Several times he invited them, whenever there's a killing, he invited them to the villa, give them a marching order, and nothing happens. I think the president should be so worried about it. One of the reasons why he was elected it was because he is a general of the army. He is a retired general. Most Nigerians do that. Nigeria will be more secured under him as a former military person. But what is happening now?
All right, just before we move away from the papers this morning, there's a quick one on the Daily Independent. It talks about the PDP northern stakeholders rejecting Saraki Mohammed as consensus presidential aspirant. It feels like we're just here to see a lot of drama unfold in these political parties ahead of the primaries.
Yes, I think we've discussed that because of this program. But as I said, the candidates put forward by some leaders or elders within the North, of course, is not acceptable to most of the other people within the North. When they started that journey, personally, I knew that it was a mission in futility. There is no way they'll be able to come out with a consensus candidate within themselves. Who are you going to drop? Is it Tambowa? Is it Bala Mohammed? Or is it Saraki? Or is it the other guy, Hadatu or Hayato? I can't remember his name now. It is a mission in futility. If you ask me personally, this is my personal opinion, of all those four candidates, Tambowa seems to me the most broad-based candidate within the rank of the four. But are you going to jettison the person of Atiku Abubakar, who is also from the North? Somebody who contested the election in 2019 and gathered about 11 million votes or thereabout. Are you going to jettison him and said, oh, is Atiku Abubakar not from the North as well? That in itself, to me, is neither here nor there. The primary is coming. Let them go and pick up their forms. Let them go put on their boxing gloves, go into the ring and slug it out, and may the best candidate come out. But I will also repeat that for me, this is the best time to give the people of the Southeast the opportunity to be able to also produce the president, most likely from the PDP, because since 1999, the Southeast, more than any other political zone, have pitched their tent with PDP. Go and check the records. Since 1999, it is the only political zone I know that has been so consistent. Okay, which also the South elect. And I think that there's need for them also to look at the Southeast for once and see whether they can also get the best. All well and good. Let everybody go to the ring, and then the best candidate come out. I hope they're able to come out with a candidate that can be able to square up to the APC come 2022, because it's a good opportunity for the PDP to win the election. President Muhammad Buhari, who has been the arrowhead of the PDP, is not going to be in the ballot come 2023. So it is an open race when it comes to the presidency.
All right, thank you, Chris. All right, we must say a very big thank you to Chris Kende Wando, chartered mediator and conciliator. Thanks for all the thoughts that you have shared on the Off the Press segment. We do appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. Do have a nice day.
All right, it's still The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. We'll go back this day in history and see what happened, and we'll come back and have our first major conversation for the day. Do join us again.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
If you no talk, they go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the Babin, I pay my rent. From the Babin, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
How can we have peace without justice?
Plus Politics. It's not just another political conversation, it's about keeping you in the know. The relevant interviews, asking the tough questions to those that matter. Get the answers you need. Does it mean that the people who were injured, people who were shot at, those who were involved in that stampede are not going to get justice?
It is unfortunate, it is sad that we have a government of deaf and dumb.
Analysis from top experts.
The last election was not really an election.
We feel that Obasanjo has a very special place in his heart for hating Ijaw people.
I think it really boils down to two things. One, trust and accountability.
Plus Politics, every weeknight at 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
It's the breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. We're about to look at the first major conversation, the consensus of Rivers State APC and the choice of a Cuba candidate. Now, ahead of the 2023 general elections, the leadership of the All Progressive Congress has picked Lagos-based businessman Tonye Cole as a standard bearer in Rivers State, while 10 governorship aspirants from the riverine extraction, including Tonye Princewell and Mr. Dakoko Peterside, had signed a pact to support whoever emerged amongst them. There seemed to be a lot of disagreement with the emergence of Tonye Cole as the Cuba candidate for the APC. Also, Magnus Abe, who is an aspirant, had declared his interest to contest the governorship position on the platform of the APC. Also kicked against the candidacy of Tonye Cole, as he described it as a process of fraud, adding that the business mogul will not be accepted by the APC delegates. We do have joining us this morning to make sense of all that's happening in Rivers State as regards the APC, Okunabon Kataria. Good morning, Okunabon Kataria. It's good to have you join us this morning.
Good morning, Mercy. We are meeting again.
Yes, good to have you join us. So what do you really mean?
Justin, good morning. Justin, we're not calling now, Justin.
Good morning, Okunabon. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
So let's get to the conversation. Can you quickly tell us what's happening with the Rivers State APC as regards their choice of governorship candidates?
Well, first, whatever I have to tell you is based on my perception and the preponderance of opinion as a member of the public. Like I tell people, I'm not a member of APC, I'm not a member of PDP, and so my views are disinterested. Oh my God, whenever I'm on air, don't worry, we'll switch on the deck. But you can hear me, can you?
Go ahead.
Well, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, very good. Very good. So I'm not a member of APC or PDP. So when I give my views on this issue, they are disinterested. But I have it on very good authority, and I know, and it's no secret, like you rightly said, the hopefuls, Cuba hopefuls, because I think you become an aspirant when you buy the form. I might be wrong. But the Cuba hopefuls signed a pact that they were going to support whoever eventually emerges as the candidate of the party. And that pact was signed some weeks back. But what I gather right now is that what they meant was that at the end of the primary, whoever emerges will be supported by every other person, and not before the primary. Now, the standard bearer of the party in Rivers State for the Cuba election is Toye Cole. And the choice, the process is being impugned, is being questioned by his other colleagues who even signed that pact. Because they are saying no, that what they meant was after the primaries and not before the primaries. So they are impugning the way Toye Cole emerged. They believe that it was architecture for him to emerge. And, well, I agree. Some persons like Honorable Chief Michael West, Toye Prince Will, and co. have accepted Toye Cole as the standard bearer. But then, few other persons are dissenting because they believe that the process wasn't credible enough, that it was orchestrated. And that dissension is the problem that the party is going to have right now. I'm talking of the camp of Right Honorable Civil Committee by Mechi. Now you also have the issue of the Magnus Abbey camp. Of course, we all know that the APC in Rivers State is split into two camps. You have Magnus Abbey, you have Right Honorable Civil Committee by Mechi. Now the Magnus Abbey camp is always insistent that Magnus Abbey will contest. And Magnus Abbey himself has said, should he fail at the primaries, he's going to accept anybody. But no candidate shall be foisted on the party and on Rivers State. So that is the fragment right now. Now, it is a little bit worrisome that there are about 10 people. You have Honorable Sokonte Davis, you have Dawari George, you have Dakuku Peter Side, you have Michael Wells, you have Toye Prince Will. About 10 of them or thereabouts who signed that pact. And they all belong to the Right Honorable Civil Committee's camp. Now, that is a camp. Let me state here now that is the camp that is being recognized by the federal, by the national rather, because Emeka Bekwe, who is the chairman of the APC in Rivers State, belongs to that camp, and not the Magnus Abbey faction. So that is one camp that, as far as the APC national is concerned, that is the APC in Rivers State. Now, the fact is, these other persons who also signed that pact, of the how many, about 10 of them, only Sokonte Davis, Toye Prince Will, and Michael West have come up to say they accept Architect Toye Cole as their standard bearer. The rest are silent. And to me, that is ominous, because it dredges up the sordid experience of 2019, where the internal wranglings stripped the APC of partaking, having the point of partaking in the 2019 elections. And so I am a little bit worried that if out of about 10, only 3 persons have come out openly to say they agree, they endorse Toye Cole, what of the other? Some might even come up to say, yes, we endorse Toye Cole in the open, while they might be fifth columnists. I'm not saying these other ones have said so. I'm not saying they are fifth columnists. I'm saying we're just giving an analysis of the situation. As politicians, these things happen. You have the moles, you have the fifth columnists. If the process, they believe, if they decipher sinister plots, they believe that the process is not transparent enough. What makes you think that they might not become fifth columnists? We all know that, for example, Magnus Abbey was a member of the APC when he took the APC to court with the sole intention, although the special reason was that the immediate credibility and transparency. But the sole intention was, if I'm not going to get it, then I will also ensure that whoever is in a meeting brings will not get it.
So, about Katara, you're saying that
it's a personal thing. I'm not in the interest of the party. So how are we sure that these other ones are also not going to play the role that Magnus Abi played in 2019?
All right. Openabon Kataria, let's come back a bit because we're looking at.
I cannot speak. 1 minute. I cannot tell you. I cannot ascertain the apocryphalness or veracity of that. Who has come up to say, Willie, he is going to contest? He was also one of the signatories. He also signed that part. So I am scared that if these issues are not resolved in the party, what happened in 2019, we might have a rehash of what happened in 2019.
Okay.
So the elders,
Openabon Kataria, let's come to this. Okay.
The leader of the party.
Openabon Kataria, let's stay with the issue of the
tactfully and quickly.
Let's come back to this. I mean, we're trying to understand what's really happening with the Rivers State APC as regards, the issue of consensus and the candidate that has emerged. Now, if you look at the Electoral Act, of course, the 2022 bill that's been put in place, it talks about consensus candidate. It says a political party that adopts a consensus candidate shall secure the written consent of all cleared aspirants for the position, indicating their voluntary withdrawal from the race and their endorsement of a consensus candidate. It also further states that in that paragraph B, that where a political party is unable to secure a written consent of all cleared aspirants for the purpose of a consensus candidate, it shall revert to the choice of direct or indirect primaries for the nomination of candidates for the aforementioned or aforesaid elective position. Just in a sentence, do you think that the candidacy of Tony Cole meets the requirement of the law?
Well, if you talk speaking legally, the truth about it is that just like you rightly said, as you rightly quoted, no doubt you're going to have primaries, whether it's going to be direct or indirect, even if consensus, because they must all appear at that venue and openly declare their support for the consensus candidate. Anything short of that is illegal and will nullify the primary. So you're not definitely going to have primaries. For example, Magnus Abi has insisted and he started campaigning that for his governorship ambition. So definitely you're going to have primaries. Even if Terry Princeton is the consensus candidate for the faction, the right of the people this faction. I don't even want to call it a faction because it has been recognized by the federal government. So even if Terry Cole is being recognized or is being accepted as a consensus candidate, and Magnus Abi dissent, you're definitely going to have the primary. That is what. Now, even if Magnus Abi eventually agrees, even if he has questions, it's okay, yes, Terry Cole, you're still going to have the primary. It is at the venue of the primary that they will now make public, make known, openly declare their support for the consensus candidate. So if you talk of primaries, definitely you're going to have primaries. Now, if, for example, the likes of Ojukaye too, who is also dissenting, a lot of them are upset with the way Cole emerged. So even Ojukaye, unless it's been placated before the primary, the day of the primary, Ojukaye will even come out to contest. And so you're not going, right now to speak, you can't even talk of a consensus candidate. Because you still have dissenting voices. So you can't even talk of a consensus candidate. Definitely the APC and Rivers State will have primaries for a gubernatorial candidate. Right, that is not in that. That's very fragile. Now, I haven't said this. Now you look at the circumstances, like I said, I am a little bit worried because I don't want a rehash of what happened in 2019. I don't want a rehash of that. And that's why I said, because if that happens, APC stands a risk of not being on the ballot again in 2023. Now, people think it's a party affair. It goes beyond the party affair because the one-party system. And that one-party system, of course, it becomes draconian. And that's why I enjoy all the feuding parties to shift their swords, strike a compromise, and ensure that at least Rivers people will have choices to make. Because you have the PDP. It is not even peculiar to the APC alone. As I speak right now, you have internal wrangles in the PDP. What is happening in the APC, in fact, in the PDP, it might be more accentuated. Because recently, the governor of the state, Yesom Wike, interdicted, warned them sternly, especially the commissioners and special advisors, that should any of them be involved in who succeeds him, that such a person will be thrown out. It's everywhere. It's in the social media. You want them. And definitely people have got forms. So the same thing. It's a normal thing, especially when you are approaching the crunch time. Now, it takes the wisdom of the leadership to tactfully address this issue. Otherwise, it's not as if peculiar to APC. APC is because right now you already have a candidate. And that's why you think that, oh, it's just APC. You also have the same problem growing in PDP and in every other, and in most prominent and popular political parties.
All right, let's talk about all of these issues that you have mentioned. Rightly said that from the foregoing, there seems to be the issue of imposition of interest and candidate at the APC level in Rivers State, and also you talked about the issue of two different factions in two different camps. You talked about the Rotimi Amechi camp and, of course, Senator Magnus camp. With all of this internal wrangling with all of this politicking and, of course, the people not really having their say or the right to discuss who they actually want to govern them, don't you think it would actually bring about maybe the demise of the party, as it were, in Rivers State?
You know, I expressed the fear, not demise. When we talk of demise, you're going to the extreme. You know, I expressed the fear of it not being on the ballot. Well, that could be a precursor for demise, probably. But having said that, I also said the national recognized the I don't want to call it a faction. Should I say you have APC and dissidents? Let me put it that way. Because the national recognizes Emeka Beke as the chairman of APC in Rivers. So let's say APC and dissidents, But having said that, the fact is, I'm not even going to talk of imposition. When you say imposition, it's like this must be the candidate. When the selection issue was taking place, the minister wasn't there. Now you have the APC leaders who were there. And it was put to votes. Of all those candidates, who do you think will be acceptable to Rivers people? Who do you think Rivers people will want? And majority, out of how many? Toyoko got 10 votes. Next to him was Dawari George, who got 3 votes. I mean, the gap is so much. And so many issues we are taking under advice. First, given the overheated policy, given the wranglings in the party, who do you think we are going to choose that will be acceptable to all? Toyoko is not a politician. Toyoko is a businessman, like you rightly described. And so the thinking was that this man probably has not offended anybody. And so the chances of him being accepted by all are quite high. That is number one. And number two, this man, we strongly believe, yes, in 2019 he contested, even though APC was not on the ballot. We strongly believe it's somebody whose loyalty is not, it can never be in doubt. In other words, his loyalty is to Rivers people. Having not been a politician, definitely he will be very objective in whatever he does. So let's take Toyoko. If we take any other candidate, I'm not saying this other candidate, I'm not impugning or impeaching the credibility of the other candidates, please. But if we take this candidate, they don't do anything like caucus, no caucus, loyalty, clique, and so forth. He will be a governor for all, both party members and non-party members. Number three, if we take Toyoko, given his strides in the business industry, he's going to attract a lot of investment to the state. It's not a question of being cocooned, like you have you have how do you call it, clique, trying to direct him and guide him on what to do. No. He will come as somebody that is disinterested, somebody that is open, somebody that is impartial. So these are some of the considerations for the choice of Tony Cole as the candidate. Because these other politicians, take it or leave it, they have cliques. Every politician will definitely have his clique, will definitely have his group, will definitely have this. And if that happens, some people express the fear that they might be left out. Politics is all about interest. So why not we take somebody that will be neutral, somebody that will be like a unifying force? I'm not justifying it. I'm saying the reasons that they advance, please. Somebody that will be like a unifying force. Because for every politician, for example, I'll give you a very simple example. A is contesting, B is contesting, C is contesting. A, B are politicians. Now, whether I like it or not, A, B has his group. A has his group, B has his group. C is not a politician. C might be neutral. Somebody that will accommodate both somebody from A, B, and any other person. These are some of the considerations that we are taking under, the issues that we are taking under advisement for the choice of Fenko, because I interrogated the process. Now, the problem is, most of them believe, like I said, that the whole thing was architecture, orchestrated before that process. And that is where the problem is. It's as if, the minister himself had talked to certain persons to say, this is my choice, and I want him to emerge. And those persons are just being beaten.
Okay, open about Kataria.
These are just conjectures. These are conjectures. But the minister will want to talk to, how many of them, the panel of judges, so to speak, how many of them...
Open about Kataria, we're almost out of time, but let's just quickly see...
And it will not leak, so 1 minute, sorry. It will not leak to the other aspirants. It's a little bit questionable. Because if I tell you something, in politics, one way or the other, it will leak.
So,
it will leak until after the event.
Open about Kataria, we're almost out of time.
That's why a lot of them are dissenting. Yeah.
So we're almost out of time. This will just be the last. And
whatever it is,
if we can actually just get the word in edgewise, so we can actually conclude on this.
Open about Kataria, let's get straight to this one before we call it a wrap. We're out of time, and we just have like one question to go now. But let's just look at it in this slide. So just like you have mentioned, we remember that Tony Cole was the party's candidate in 2019. And, at the time you had the APC being excluded from the ballot box following the litigation that was put up against, him at the time. And so you had the likes of Senator Magnus Abe, like you have mentioned, and you also had the minister, of course, Rotimi Amechi, who was also part of the litigation. Not also forgetting to mention that in 2019, Tony Cole also mentioned the fact that you had the minister luring him, to be part of the race. And now the reporter also saying that the minister has a hand in him emerging as a consensus candidate. What could be the interest now if he led a litigation against him in 2019?
Please, sorry, I didn't hear you again.
So I would probably just do a recap of all of that. So I'm saying that if you follow the course of event from 2019, when Tony Cole was a candidate, and of course the APC was not represented at the ballot, they were excluded following the litigations that you had at the time. And so you had people who led these litigations. You're having the likes of Senator Magnus Abe, and of course the minister, Rotimi Amechi, who was also part of it. And you also have the fact that Tony Cole himself also mentioned that in 2019, he got into the race because you had the minister luring him, in his words, to be part of the race. Now, in 2022, you also have some quoters who are dissatisfied with what's going on, saying that the minister has a hand in him becoming, the consensus candidate. So the question here is, what is really the interest now? And if you were part of a team that, had that court litigation against them, so what changed in 2022?
Like I rightly said, I said the dissension is occasioned by the belief that the whole process was orchestrated. I said that. And that's why a lot of them, like Ujukaye Flagamat, believe that no, it wasn't a credible process. Talking of the choice of Tony Cole, But no doubt about that. I mean, it's human frailty to so think. I mean, it's natural to so think. Because this is the same person you brought out in 2019. And all of a sudden, we all agree that the consensus candidate will emerge after the primaries. Whoever emerges, we are going to agree. So how come it's preceding the primary? So these are all the fears and these are all the worries. And this is a point for the dissension. But having said this, my advice as in S, not the C, advice as in S. You know, my advice is this. In 2019, you lost out. Now, if you continue on that trajectory, definitely you're going to lose out in 2023. Whose interest is it? Is it in the interest of the party? You are going to lose out, the party is also going to lose out. Whatever it is, that's why I say it is incumbent now on the leadership of the party, especially the minister, to invite all the aggrieved parties to a round table and resolve these issues. Because what I see is what happened in 2019 might have happened again in 2023. Now, if you want to stave that up, then you must judge confabulation. You must sit down to discuss. Right, please, whatever it is, let us settle this issue. Right, otherwise, the party also stands the risk of not being on the ballot in 2023. But now, this other issue of the opposition is a matter of context.
Thank you so much, Opunabo. All right, we've been looking at the APC in Rivers State and the choice of candidacy, and of course, all that is going on now. We had to go back to what happened in 2019 and try to, find a way forward as we get into the polls in 2023. Thank you so much once again, Opunabo Nkotaria.
Thank you.
All right, it's still the breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. We'll take a very short break. We'll come back and talk about the impact of malaria in Nigeria, the workforce, the country's economy, and the talk of vaccines. How far have we done? In a moment, to join us again.
What's up, guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshukeye.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Event is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely, right? No question. He's a living legend. God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry.
You're watching Plus Event
on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
All right, welcome back. It is still the breakfast on PlusTvAfrica. This time around, we are focusing on health. Just yesterday, the world celebrated or marked the World Malaria Day, and there are concerns. Now, experts say malaria killed no fewer than 200,000 Nigerians and afflicted 61 million others in 2021. And the country is said to have lost over $1.1 billion. However, the hope of ending malaria, a disease that kills thousands of people annually, received the boost in late 2021 when the World Health Organization approved the use of the first ever malaria vaccine. Now, the vaccine RTS, or Mosquirus, is not just the first for malaria, but also the first developed for any parasitic disease. Now, parasites are much more complex than viruses or bacteria, and the quest for a malaria vaccine had been underway for many years. This vaccine was found to surpass the 75% efficacy goal set by the WHO for malaria vaccine to receive a nod. Now, health experts, caregivers, and government officials describe the development as a breakthrough in the fight against the scourge that has plagued humans for decades. Now, malaria, which is preventable and treatable, continues to have a devastating impact on the health and livelihood of people around the world. We have Dr. Tui Mebawondu, a public health practitioner, joining us on this particular conversation. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Mebawondu.
Justin, for having me.
Yes, it is a pleasure. Doctor, it is very alarming when we see statistics and figures like that. Just yesterday, when the world was commemorating the World Malaria Day, figures were just reeled at. And from what we hear, 200,000 deaths in Nigeria. How did we get to this? One would have thought that with all of the advocacy, with all of the money and funds being pumped into malaria, that we should have actually been able to bring it under to some extent. So what's going on, really?
It is a shameful repeat that as much as 30-something% of all malaria cases and deaths occur in Nigeria. In fact, 95% of malaria cases worldwide occur in 4 African countries: Nigeria, DR Congo, Tanzania, and Mozambique. Those are so. For all the deaths in malaria deaths in the world, as much as 25% of them, that is for every 1 out of 4 deaths of malaria from malaria worldwide, is seen in Nigeria. And of course, you listed out the numbers and then the cost for us. And here we are. We have small countries like Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Sri Lanka, eradicating malaria. And we are still here trying to battle how to deal with malaria. One, first and foremost, we have not put sufficient funds and policy initiative to drive malaria back. Let's look at it. We have a very weak health.
All right, we seem to be having some connectivity issue with Dr. Tui Mebawondu. We'll try and reconnect him on the shows, okay? All right, Mercy, let's talk about malaria. It's one illness that has actually plagued a whole lot of Nigerians, and over time, it seems to have actually been misdiagnosed. A lot of people, when they have as little as headaches or fevers, they tell you that they get malaria even without getting the right checks or tests done. And they just go about prescribing several drugs for themselves. But let's get Dr. Tui back. I guess he has joined us yet again. Dr. Mebawondu, thanks for staying with us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was just explaining that it is shameful that Nigeria contributes as much as 1 in 4 deaths of malaria worldwide. And more importantly, the most shameful is the fact that 95% of cases of malaria worldwide is from about 4 African countries: Nigeria, DR Congo, Tanzania, and Mozambique. So why did we get to this point? One, as usual, we have a flip-flop policy to address critical health challenges. If small countries like Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Sri Lanka, Europe, Paraguay can actually eradicate malaria, reducing the transmission of malaria to 0, what's our problem? One, first and foremost, I've mentioned clearly that there's a policy challenge. Our health institution is very weak, very, very weak. We have weak health system, then we have financial challenge, and then human resources challenge. Now, if you look at the pillars to really eradicate malaria and turn malaria cases down to 0, we're not doing much. And COVID came, took our time, and a lot of us as slum dwellers, poor water supply, sanitation challenge, all this add to the fact that to deal with malaria has become difficult. And thus, we're losing a lot of children, especially under 5, and pregnant women.
All right, so, but what sort of innovation do you think we need to embrace to talk about reduction of malaria deaths and saving lives at this point? Looking at the theme for, this year.
Yes, harnessing innovation to reduce the burden of malaria is apt, because what that means is Now, what that's telling us essentially is that there's no silver bullet to dealing with the challenge of malaria. We have, let's look at it. First and foremost, we need to do an environmental control and vector control. We need to drain our water, cut our bushes, and ensure that, the vector that actually breeds by the mosquito is properly controlled. The indoor residual spraying and outdoor spraying has to actually be raised up, and we have to embrace sanitation and hygiene. That is key. The other thing is that we want to deploy insecticide-treated nets in such a way that all of the 5 are pregnant women sleep under the net. The net has suffered a lot of setback in distributions and penetrations anywhere in Nigeria. That's another issue. The third thing is about the drugs that you want to use to treat malaria. We're seeing a lot of resistance to some of even the artemisinin combination therapy that we're used to. And people just use them haphazardly in such a way that we're now having difficulty in actually treating malaria from the simple drug that we know. That is there. And then the drug is expensive. Because now if you have to treat malaria, you're talking about 3,000 naira minimum if you have to purchase the drug outside. And then that 3,000 naira is a lot of money to some people when they have an episode of more than 5, 6, 7 malaria per year, or even sometimes, 1 or 2 in a month. So, and then surveillance. We're not doing sufficient surveillance to look at it that where are we? In fact, we're not pushing what I call bold, hairy, audacious goal to drive malaria figure down in Nigeria. What we're seeing, it seems we're still stuck at control of malaria. At least trying to figure out how malaria will not be a public health issue. It's not now a public health issue. We have not moved to that elimination and eradication. We've not really done those kind of bold steps. Good enough, we have vaccines now. Vaccine is one of the tools that's available now, especially for under 5, where we have 3 doses and the 4th dose after some time, which can now be used to reduce the severity of malaria, especially P. falciparum, which is actually causes most of the death. So we have the vaccine. We have to actually step up our environmental and vector control, indoor residual spraying, outdoor residual spraying. We have to raise the drug and diagnosis methodology, because now, even malaria is diagnosed on hump now. Nobody even tried to do what we call thick blood film or all those tests. So we have to put all those instruments together if we want to get something from malaria, really reduce malaria episode.
All right, Dr. Mebawando, last year the world was celebrating when there was the talk of the RTS, and of course one would have thought that would have been the way forward, vaccination, for this particular illness. What's the situation as we speak? Let's relate it, bring it down home. Are the vaccines available here, or what exactly is going on as regards getting people vaccinated, from malaria?
Thinking about Nigeria, we're looking at the 3rd quarters of this year to see whether we can get some of those vaccines and then deploy them. What is important is that, if you may have a very efficacious product that is not efficient. If the vaccines work so well, don't forget, vaccine can only have the desired effect or become efficient when you can deploy the vaccine effectively. That means that you have a whole chain of things to think about, bringing the vaccines, maintaining the cold chain, or whatever case, and then deploying the vaccines to the remote areas, giving to people that still need it, and dealing with challenges of vaccine hesitancy and all those stuff. So it involves a lot of things. It goes beyond just discovering the vaccine and saying that, okay, I have a vaccine that now works. But you have to make the vaccine work. Yes, the vaccine works, but you have to make the vaccine work. So vaccine is one of the tools which you can be incorporated into the expanded program of immunization, and then can be deployed with, say, like polio vaccine, like measles vaccines, and then taken down to the remotest corner of Nigeria. But having said that, note that it will cost money, it will cost human resources, it will cost proper planning to ensure that these vaccines get to where we want the vaccines to get to. So, and that is the thing. And when you look at Nigeria broken health system, 30,000 primary healthcare centers all over Nigeria, less than 6,000 of them working, no funding, no human resources, and then it's a mess, but we need to do more. We have to rely on our partners to provide money, to provide training and human resources to deploy those vaccines. I hope that it's just another instrument in our kitty to deal with this scourge of malaria. I hope we use it well. So
on this particular, it's a week for it, and so what would be the call to all of the stakeholders, government inclusive, the health sector as well, including individuals?
Yes, act local, act local. You see, we need to drive the community participation in our malaria eradication. What is a community? A community is not just one tiny village in a remote area of Ilela or in a remote area of Lagos. A community means that church, mosque, religious institutions, faith-based organizations, NGOs, CSOs, we need to really use them indeed to drive down the proper campaign against malaria and appropriate use of even anti-malaria. Now imagine in one of the, during this period now, during the period of fasting and even Easter that just ended, during one of the sermons or exhortation to the people, the pastors or the imams then start speaking about the beauty of sleeping under a insecticide net and distributing it and using their own influence to drive the campaign against malaria. That would be nice. We need to find a way to act locally. We need to increase the education. We cannot just reduce malaria campaign to 25th of April every day. And then when malaria bites somebody, it's killing people. It's shameful that 1 out of 4 deaths in the whole world, in the whole wide world from malaria are Nigerians. It's very shameful. I think we need to do something about it, but it remains to be seen. What exactly can we do right? What exactly can we do right? Maybe this is going to be an exception.
All right, Dr. T. Mebawando, thank you for all the thoughts that you have shared on malaria, the enlightenment, and of course advocacy, and what we need to be doing and to save ourselves from this embarrassment, like you have called it, so that way Nigerians don't have to start treating malaria almost twice every other month. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's the size of the show for today. We must say a very big thank you to all of you who have sat back to watch. And of course, I trust you have been able to learn 1 or 2 things as regards what you need to do concerning malaria, because it is an ever-present issue, almost something that everyone can relate with. The show returns again tomorrow. My name is Justin Akadome.
And I am Mercy Boko, and if you missed out on any part of the conversation, that's all right to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Do subscribe to YouTube channel as a PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Life can be fun and rewarding, but it also comes with some risk. As in business, you win some, you lose some. And that's why you need to be wise in the choices you make. It's like placing a bet. Again, you need to be wise. Wise in choosing an innovative platform with the highest market options and highest odds ever. That's why Winners Golden Bet, the leader in online, in-shop, virtual, and live sports betting, gives you enhanced platforms that offer you the best chances of winning. For betting on live soccer matches, live dog races, and virtual games. Winners Golden Bet is your best bet. Instant payment of winnings guaranteed. Play online or in any of our numerous shops nearest to you.
Hey guys, be wise. Play on Winners Golden Bet.
Winners Golden Bet, the wise choice.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
He suffered equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, then go beat you. Now 2,500 and they pay.
Good morning to you. I am Justin Akadonye with the news brief on Plus TV Africa. Now, the world commemorates Malaria Day to raise awareness about the mosquito-borne disease and examine efforts towards the prevention, treatment, control, and elimination of the disease. According to the World Health Organization, over 600,000 deaths from malaria were reported in Africa last year. However, as Nigeria joins the rest of the world to mark this day, the Director of Medical Service of the Hospital's Management Board in Kano State, Dr. Suleiman Hamza, said that stakeholders in the health sector need to have a central coordination in the war against malaria. Plus TV News health correspondent Ngozi Ika OHC reports.
Over the years, Nigeria has been fighting to put an end to the deadly malaria scourge. According to the latest World Malaria Report, Nigeria accounts for about 31.9% of global malaria deaths, which is approximately 200,000 deaths in 2021, and over 60 million people are infected yearly. With this global report, the war against malaria is yet to be won in Nigeria. According to Dr. Suleiman Hamza, he says that the dirty environment across the country is a major challenge to stemming malaria scourge.
The environment is not quite clean because this is one of the reasons why malaria is still thriving. If you go to our towns and villages and wards, you still see refuse dump littering everywhere. The Ministry for Environment, even though I cannot speak for them, but from what I am seeing on the road, they are doing a lot to keep the environment clean. But it seems the people are not cooperating fully. For instance, in some areas of Kano City, people will bring out all the refuse dumped from their compound and gutters around them and dump them on the street. So this it blocks the drainages and it causes a lot of havoc. So the environment is not quite clean, and that is why malaria is still thriving.
On the streets of Lagos, Residents share how often they take ill with diagnosis pointing to malaria and the remedy they apply.
Sometimes in a month, like once in a month or twice in a month. As an adult, once in a month, but the kids, I can't count. Every day their body temperature is always high. I have malaria, like sometimes I take anti-malaria, and if it not work for me, I used to take all these herbs. Because of the environment, the water, so the mosquito is too much.
For me, it's maybe twice in 2 months. And once it happens, already I know the remedies, I can go to a pharmacist. But for then I have to do a kind of lab test to know the dose, the level of such. So when I go to pharmacy, we know the right medication for me, it will prescribe. And once I take it, I'm okay.
I have malaria because I take care of myself often. So I do go for checkups and stuff like that. So no, not really. I don't really have sickness like that. Sometimes I use normal herbs, like normal herbs. So sometimes I go to the hospitals. But normally I used to go to the hospitals.
Too much you get malaria, but anytime I feel like weak or headache, so there is one pharmacy in our side that I recognize well. So when I go there, the man will treat me. You give me the normal malaria drugs. So 3-4 days, the thing I've gone. So
I take all this agbo. They call it little abas. The typhoid. They will give me the typhoid, the passion, because the malaria, the agbo is hot. When we mix it together, when I take it, I will see the effect in my body. So later I go to gym and work out. I do exercise a lot. Cures.
Dr. Suleiman discourages the use of herbs for the treatment of malaria. He explains that individuals with underlying health challenges could face serious complications from the use of unscientifically proven herbs to treat malaria.
Treatment with herbs is not encouraged. I do not encourage treatment of malaria with herbs because of a lot of issues. Sterility, dosage, and people with comorbidity, people with renal or liver dysfunction can have problems with herbs. So I do not encourage it. Of recent, I know in ABU area, it has been tried. It is formulated in form of a sachet that could be dipped into warm water and the water. So that is a scientifically proven herbs that can be used in the treatment of malaria. But the common herbs that once a person has malaria will go to the bush and then pluck some leaves and possibly take it, then it's not encouraged.
This year's World Malaria Day theme, harness innovation to reduce the malaria disease burden and save lives, is no doubt a global wake-up call to all health sectors across the world to innovate new vector control approaches, anti-malaria medicines, and other tools to speed up the pace of progress against malaria. Ngozika Ohaichasi, Plus TV News.
Meanwhile, the Adamawa State Commissioner for Health and Human Services, Professor Abdullah Isa, says information revealed by the National Malaria Elimination Program showed that annual malaria-related deaths to be over 90,000. He stated this in Yola to mark this year's World Malaria Day as the state government called for adherence to control measures for the elimination. Commissioner for Health, who was represented by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Rhoda Johanna, said despite the prevalence of malaria declining both at the state and national level, it still remains a major public health burden in Nigeria.
The National Malaria Elimination Program revealed that over 90,000 malaria-related deaths are recorded in Nigeria every year. Nigeria accounts for about a quarter of global burden of malaria, with 9 to 10 persons dying of malaria or malaria-related causes every hour. The prevalence of malaria is declining as shown in national surveys from 27% in 2015 to 23% in 2018. For Adamawa is 21%.
We have all the preventive measures that is on ground. The use of mosquito net that was shared in 2020. So people should take that advantage, use the net to ensure that they protect themselves from malaria. They should not be staying outdoor for long before when they were already bitten by mosquito and go in and sleep inside the net. They should ensure they wear long clothes and hand gloves with socks and cover themselves very well. Mostly those ones that are at risk, the children under 5 and pregnant women, they should use the net.
Also, the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, has appealed to the federal government to increase its funding for malaria to reduce the burden of the disease and save lives. The chairman, Committee on Infectious Diseases for NMA Lagos, Dr. Japhet Olugbogi, said the burden of malaria in the country is high, but that it could be eradicated with consolidated efforts. Now, Olugbogi appealed to the federal and state government to reignite momentum in the fight against the disease by deepening funding and partnership with international non-governmental organizations. In other news now, the World Health Organization has declared that Nigeria recorded more than 100,000 suspected cases of cholera in 2021, its highest in recent times. Now, the WHO's country representative in Nigeria, Dr. Walter Mulombo, corroborated the figure at a training session on oral cholera vaccine request and campaign planning organized by the Global Task Force on Cholera Control. Now, Mulombo acknowledged the role of the GTFCC and its country support platform in the global roadmap for cholera control, especially in endemic countries. The GTFCC is an agency of the World Health Organization. Now, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has arrested a suspected billionaire drug baron who are behind $3 billion tramadol deal allegedly involving Abba Kyari-led intelligence response team. After Malantin Emmanuel Okata's arrest followed months of surveillance and evasion of arrests, according to the agency. Now, Okata is the chairman of Malantin Group of Companies. He was arrested on board a flight to Abuja at the Lagos airport on Wednesday, the 13th of April. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says fresh registration in the ongoing continuous voter registration has hit over 8.5 million as at Monday. The Commission disclosed this in a CVR update on Q4 Week 2 released in Abuja on Monday night. The Commission also disclosed that over 5.1 million registrants had completed the registration, with over 2.2 million via online and 2.8 million through physical registration. According to the Commission, the gender breakdown of the registrants that have completed their registration comprised over 2.53 million male and 2.57 million female. The released statistics also indicated that over 3.5 million of the figures are youth, while 43,153 are persons living with disabilities, PWDs. Also, INEC has given its commitment to providing strong support for persons with disabilities ahead of the forthcoming 2023 general elections. INEC's National Commissioner and Chairman of the Outreach, Professor Kunlajai, maintained that the non-negotiable minimum of a credible and democratic electioneering process is its ability to grant all stakeholders the access to participate in the electoral space. He said trainings are being organized to refresh the minds of officers with long experience at the disability desk of the responsibilities as frontline implementers of the Commission's PWD's policies. Now, the House of Representatives has suspended its plenary session scheduled to hold today. Now, this is due to ongoing renovations in the House chambers, according to a notice from the House clerk. Now, he attributed the development to the renovation of the Green Chamber and to allow various committees complete and turn in their reports. He added that a new resumption date would be made available. Now, the Green Chamber had approved the request of President Muhammadu Buhari to earmark 4 trillion naira for petrol subsidy before proceeding on their Easter break. The legislators were asked to use spacious committee rooms for their plenary sittings, as the renovation is expected to last for 16 months. Now, Lagosians are unhappy that no work has commenced on the Eko Bridge weeks after a fire incident burned goods worth several millions of naira and caused serious damages, forcing motorists to use alternative routes. Well, that's on Street Views. Take a listen.
We have a government in this country. You have leaders. They don't care for us. They don't care for us. They're just doing anything. The bridge affects us so much. Let the government open the bridge.
They should fix it so that we won't have this stress when driving. We are praying that Sanwo-Olu should please do it for us.
As you can see, it's affecting everybody. So I should come visit everywhere in abroad now. 2 hours they've done it. So Nigeria government should move fast.
It's affecting us every day. Like what we are passing through here every day. Sometimes we spend more than 1 hour before we can go through the traffic. It's affecting us. We are begging government to just help us fix it.
Fix it quick now. Now the bridge all of us they use. If you know bridge, no us. Make it feed us, make all of us seafood to feed for our family.
We spend 2-3 hours. Like on Monday, we spend 5 hours. 5 hours for hold up. It is stopped every day. Not only one, it stops every day. It's very, very critical. It's stopping every day. Please let them know, let them help out know what they will do there. I beg. It's affecting us very well. In our buses, they keep complaining every day. You understand? One woman delivered a child last week inside the traffic last week.
And now to other parts of Africa. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta has opened a public viewing of former leader Mwai Kibaki's body within the Parliament building in Nairobi. Mwai Kibaki left a long-lasting legacy ranging from a new constitution, a revived economy, democracy and free primary education, among other things. Now, President Kenyatta declared a period of mourning in the country, and former President Kibaki will be given a state funeral with full military honors. In outside Africa, Twitter board has agreed to sell its platform to world's richest man, Elon Musk, in a $44 billion deal. The deal puts the Tesla chief executive in charge of a company with 217 million users and an influential role in shaping the political and media agenda on both sides of the Atlantic. Now, Musk tweets on Monday, quote, "I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter because that is what free speech means," end of quote.
I think he's like just kind of throwing his money around a little bit. I don't really think it was useful. I think he's kind of like just being a bully because he's so rich. He should leave Twitter for what it is, and I don't think they should sell it to him. To be honest, I don't think they should sell him Twitter because people use it for different reasons, you know, social media to contact people, and that will completely wipe that away, and, you know, it'll mess the business up. Like, some people really take Twitter serious.
I think there's a whole lot of uncomfortable implications with that because, I mean, you know, I may not be as well versed in this kind of thing, but what I do know is that Elon's been one of those people who tends to break the terms of service pretty regularly and go after people. And, you know, he's got such a huge platform. I think that that's dangerous, especially for him to have that control. I feel like there's a strong chance that people who criticize him are going to get shut down more. I can't say for certain because it hasn't happened yet and it's so fresh, but I think that there's a lot to be said for somebody as opinionated as he is having that power to do that, because there's so much temptation to just go ahead and abuse it the way you want.
Meanwhile, the White House says President Joe Biden is concerned about the power of large social media amid billionaire Elon Musk's deal to buy Twitter. Now, the President Joe Biden has long argued that tech platforms must be held accountable for the harm they cause.
What I can tell you as a general matter, no matter who owns or runs Twitter, the president has long been concerned about the power of large social media platforms, the power they have over our everyday lives, has long argued that tech platforms must be held accountable for the harms they cause. He's been a strong supporter of fundamental reforms to achieve that goal, including reforms to Section 230, enacting antitrust reforms, requiring more transparency, and more. And he's encouraged that there's bipartisan interest in Congress. In terms of what hypothetical policies might happen, I'm just not going to speak to that at this point.
In entertainment news now, actor Johnny Depp has concluded his testimony in the defamation case he filed against ex-wife Amber Heard, saying he is the victim of domestic violence in their relationship and is broken by the time their marriage fell apart. Now, Depp's fourth day on the witness stand in a Virginia court ended with his attorneys playing audio from a conversation that took place after Heard had secured a restraining order against him in 2016. In the recording, Depp proposed that the couple issue a joint letter saying they loved each other and the media had created a storm around them. The suggestion was an attempt to find a peaceful settlement, according to Depp. Well, sports news now. The head coach of the Flying Eagles, Ladan Bosso, says he or his team is ready for action at the 2022 WAFU Zone B Under-20 Cup of Nations in Niger Republic. Bosso said the Nigerian national Under-20 men football team were in good shape and ready to depart for Niamey on Thursday. The Flying Eagles will face perennial rivals Ghana in their opening Group B game when the WAFU Zone B qualifiers get underway. Now, Bosso said his team opened camp in Abuja since the 19th of April with 56 players and it gradually took shape. The team's first friendly match ended in a 2-all draw, and it was for those players who came for screening. Now, the Nigerian Football Federation has already approved for the team to travel with 30 players. And sports news wraps it for us on the news brief. For more stories, please follow us on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Justin Akadoni. Many thanks for watching.
There is no voting on social media. To vote, you would require a permanent voter's card. To get your PVC, visit cvr.inecnigeria.org. Create your account with a valid email address and start the registration process. An activation link will be sent to you. Click on the link and activate your account. Fill out the form, pick and submit a convenient date and time for your biometrics. Print the application slip, which should have your QR code. On the appointed date, go to the nearest INEC office for your biometric capturing. Thereafter, you will get a registration slip to pick your permanent voter's card when ready. Get your PVC today. This message is from PlusTvAfrica.
It is engagement we need to have.
Those who suffer miscarriages are never taken into account.
Members of the National Assembly are also influence peddlers.
You are sitting on Nigerians' money.
From the barbing, I pay my rent. On the barbing, I send my children to school.
A consultative engagement.
No any tangible notification before they ban us.
It's one thing for people to be at your back and the heat of the moment, and another thing for them to still be with you when push comes to shove.
I will do everything to take Lagos out of the national grid.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamode Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamode Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
How can we have peace without justice?
Plus Politics. It's not just another political conversation, it's about keeping you in the know. The relevant interviews, asking the tough questions to those that matter. Get the answers you need. Does it mean that the people who were injured, people who were shot at, those who were involved in that stampede are not going to get justice?
It is unfortunate, it is sad that we have a government of deaf and dumb.
Analysis from top experts.
The last election was not really an election.
We feel that Obasanjo has a very special place in his heart for hating Ijaw people.
I think it really boils down to two things. One, trust and accountability.
Plus Politics, every weeknight at 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Imagine that you're going to live for 100 years. The way you treat your body right now, would your liver and your kidney take you that far? Now, you must understand that the body is a biologic organism or a biologic machine, just like your generator and your machines, your car. How do you treat them? You can replace the parts, you take them for regular servicing. There is an input talking about your fuel, and there is an output talking about your combustion, your gas. That same way, the body thrives on an input, maintenance, and output system. The body, like every other biological machine, takes in organic matter because that's its source, comes from the earth, and then uses it for the production of many chemicals, hormones, and synthesis of cells and tissues, and then excretes it organic manure, and it gets back to the soil. How does this happen to maintain your health? You must take in organic-based meal. And that's why the closer your meal is to the earth, the better for you. The closer it is from the earth to you, the better such meals. When many foods stay a long distance before getting to you, it's not as good as when it just gets from ground to you. All right? Very importantly, that you reduce the intake of chemicals. You can't keep taking chemicals. The body doesn't understand it. It's not able to process it. And then for every time the body tries to process these chemicals, it experiences what we call breakdown, especially your excretory organs like your kidney and liver. This has been the cause of many liver damage and kidney damages. So when you take a lot of chemicals, one of them is pure chemicals, such as alcohol, such as spirits, such as tobacco, many of them cigarettes. When you're taking these things, the body tries its best to absorb the exogenous substance and excrete them. And of course, you have free radicals running through your system. If you're not able to break them down, your tissues die slowly. All right. Other things are things like even polyprocessed meals. For example, roasted meat, what you call suya. That suya is not very fantastic for your health, especially for your liver. It's not so good. When you take in a lot of carbonated drinks, you further cause damage to your system. And more importantly is that you may not notice them between the ages of 0 to 35, 40. The moment you begin to get off that peak period where your energy, where your body is supposed to start going uphill, you will notice that you cannot go longer than normal, and then you begin to break down. All right. Very important that you take fruits, lots of fruits. And it's important that you're particular about your source of fruits. Many of the fruits nowadays are being synthesized. Many of them are done in the laboratories. Many of them have been changed, mutated. And so when I was little, I know that pineapples that I take used to be very bitter when it's green. Nowadays, the greener it is, the sweeter it is. So these cannot be very useful for the body. So the body cannot use it. The long and short of what I'm trying to say is that your body must use what it needs, not what it doesn't need. When you're taking drugs, if you can prevent the recurrent intakes of drugs, you need to do. Many of you who think that antibiotics is vitamin C, it's not. They're not the same. Take drugs when necessary. And in fact, it must be prescribed. You just go off the counter and take what you like and how you like it, what quantity. You need to take prescribed drugs. Many of us who do herbal drinks and concussions and all kinds of things, you further disintegrate your body system. You make your body confused because the dosages are not clear. One very important source that's given to us by nature is water. A high level of alkalized water is very good for you. A high level of sunlight. Don't be afraid of sunlight. For many of you who go from air conditioners to air conditioners to air conditioners, you need the sunlight to help you provide vitamin D, which carries calcium, makes it absorbed in the bones, and prevents things like osteoporosis, low back pain, arthritis. These are natural ways of preventing illnesses. So you're managing your health that way. You're taking a lot of water, you prevent urinary tract infection, you prevent dehydration, you prevent constipation, you take a lot of fibers from fruits, you prevent constipation, you improve your microorganisms in your system, then you will not fall sick easily. And of course, you do a lot of fruits, including vegetables that contains a lot of carotenes, vitamins B, B12, B6, A vitamins. Your eyes are very, very protected. And of course, you want to care for your prostate. Lastly, there are age-related diseases. For every age, you want to find out what are the diseases in that age and you begin to treat them. For an example, a man who is clocking 45 years and above needs to check his prostate. Don't be surprised. Oh, he died of prostate cancer and you're like, no, check your prostates once you hit 45. For a lady, you cross reproductive age, you want to start checking for cervical cancer. Pap smear recurrently, yearly, will not do you bad. Of course, your BP should not be, you should know your BP of your last 1 week. Your blood sugar, you should know the last 1 month blood sugar. Don't be in a new, especially when you clock the age of 40. By then, your health is beginning to take an uphill task. Manage your health so that you can live as much as 100.
Tuesday, and as usual, I always bring you some story that you don't want to hear. So Debola, Sonny, and David are going to help us put the phone lines on the screen. I will talk about this extensively, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians will be surprised at this news. Now, former Sporting Lisbon manager Jose Peseiro is reportedly the leading candidate to become the new head coach of the Super Eagles after interim coach Austin Eguavoin vacated the position in March. It was also learned that Dutch coach Mark Watte and former Algerian coach Adel Amrouche are among the coaches who have shown interest in the Eagles' job. Apart from the aforementioned names, several top managers have been linked with the Eagles' job, with former Barcelona manager Ernesto Valverde, ex-PSG and France coach Laurent Blanc, former PSV Eindhoven manager Philippe Cocu, and former Sampdoria and Cagliari manager Walter Zenga, all touted as possible candidates for the vacant Eagles head coach position. There was, however, a twist as Eguavoin remained in charge of the Eagles for the World Cup final playoffs, which Nigeria lost to Ghana on goals aggregate. Meanwhile, an official of the ministry confirmed that Peseiro, who in February said he'd never told the NFF that he would take over the Eagles' job, is now the man leading the race for the vacant position. There are reports that several coaches who applied for the Eagles' job are demanding for $55,000, with one of them even asking to be paid $250,000 a month. The reports added that Peseiro is willing to accept just $50,000. They call it just, really. Bukayo Peseiro. We spoke recently about this, and you were talking about, and Shehu Majidagba was on the phone, and Shehu said, nah, he doesn't have to be a foreign coach. He can be a homegrown coach, as far as he's a good coach, really. It's precisely what we want. The only names we are saying there is Laurent Blanc.
Been a while since
we've seen Philip Koku.
Not much to be said about Philip Koku. The most impressive name there was Ernesto Valverde.
So Debola should please help us put this full line on the screen. And I've listed coaches. Well, substantial coaches.
What is crazy to me about this story is that I've said before to you, I don't mind if we get a foreign coach. I don't mind if it's a home-based coach, as long as he's a good coach with a vision and a tactical setup, a tactical philosophy that will bring our football into the 21st century of this era of football, with possession football heavy on the mind of Europe and most teams around the world trying to catch up to the likes of Germany, Spain, France. It doesn't matter where the coach comes from. My issue is that why is Pissarro the leading candidate? When it comes to every other area of this country, when we want to go after foreign expatriates, we go after the very best. We're willing to pay however much it takes. Oftentimes you see white people, Chinese people, riding around in private cars on the streets of Lagos. And it's because work has brought them to this country. And we love that what they're doing is meant to help improve this country. It's meant to help stabilize infrastructures and institutions that need foreign expertise. Hopefully one day we can replace those foreign expatriates with well-learned Nigerians who have gained the necessary expertise to fill those positions. But in the case of the Nigerian Super Eagles, we always seem to go digging for mid to mediocre level managers.
Eguavoin has come and gone. Nigeria is the only country that I know that the media, the press, don't have access to the documents signed by this coach. Now, we have always asked, and Amaju Pinnick, in his regular arrogant attitude, doesn't answer. The question we ask is, do you put it as a clause in the contract that, listen, you must try and manage some home-based players too? We have 22 players going to any competition and they are all foreign-based. How do we improve on our home league when we don't even use them at all? We don't even look their way.
To be fair, I'm not sure if using them at international level is the way to improve the home league.
If you take them and sit them down on the bench and they watch and they travel with them, it's called exposure.
Yeah, but those are individual exposure for individual players. Maybe you pick, even if we pick an all home-based player team setup, that's 22, 25 players for whatever tournament they're going for. 25 players is a drop in the bucket in the amount of players that play and ply their trade in the Nigerian league. We need a structural ground-up reform in this country, and we're not doing it.
We don't have talented players that can be worked upon and can become world class.
I'm saying that.
I'm saying that USA 94, Clement Westerhoff was conveniently, for me, was not the best coach Nigeria ever had. But for me, he was the best marketer. He knew people in high places. So he got Okocha in Eintracht Frankfurt. He got Kanuwaku Afinidi into Ajax. He got Sunday Oliseh to Stuttgart. He did that. He got Ikpeba to Monaco. And when he calls them to the squad to play, he's bringing in structured men who have worked in good structures, who are good players already, who have been trained well, and they come back and they do well. You can understand why they do well.
But can we both agree, and can everyone in Nigeria agree, that the Nigerian league of now is not the Nigerian league of then?
True that.
It's not as good as it used to be. The players that are coming out of it are not as good as they used to be. And every national team manager's first responsibility is to pick the very best squad. And the very best squad has Nigerians that are applying their trade at the highest levels around the world, not in Nigeria. So I don't blame the coach. My problem is that if we're going to build a structure, we need to decide that this coach is going to do it for the next 10 years, next 8 years, next 12 years. If it's going to take 15 years, let's do it. We're going to use that opportunity to raise the level of football, to raise the level of coaching, to raise the level of opportunities that our coaches, our footballers have to go ply their trade abroad, but having already learned the basics of the Nigerian philosophy.
At least we can boastfully say that the most, celebrated coach in England, the English Premier League, Alex Ferguson, didn't get there until 5 years.
Yes.
Clement Westerhoff didn't build that Galacticos until 4 or 5 years. We should be patient, but Gernot Rohr spent close to that. And he made a...
But the thing is, you see, the question, if there's oversight, if there's transparency, we would know that, for one, his mandate, his remit, was to improve the Nigerian league in the course of his management of the National League. We don't even know that to be a fact. And then even if we did know that, we would be able to judge every year how far, how much improvements have we attained. We cannot say yes to the first question. We cannot say yes to the second question. So his tenure was a failure on the part of the administration that hired him. And we can only hope that they do not go down the same endless, bottomless rabbit hole that brought in Gernot Rohr in the first place with no tangible achievements.
Okay. Don't know if Debola can get the 4 lines on the screen yet, but we need to look at the UEFA Champions League semi-final. And that's Manchester City versus Real Madrid, the Galacticos, tonight.
Pep Guardiola said his team
at the Etihad Stadium
must be ready to suffer. And no one will expect that, because everyone will expect that Man City will hold on to most of the possession, which will mean that most of the opportunities, clear shots on goal, will come from them. But when it comes to Real Madrid, I don't know what it is about a team that has experienced the competition long enough. Eventually, that competition stops being scary. It's like that's the moment that their A game raises itself to become A+. And we've seen this season. Granted, some of their efforts were lucky. When they went up against PSG, they were lucky in some areas. To score 3 goals in the final 25 minutes, I would say that's great luck, but when you're that good, you make your own luck.
Let's look at it like this. What Manchester City do is they try and lock you down. They lock you down and they don't make you move. But you see, that's the favorite thing that people like Karim Benzema, Vinicius Jr., they want you to try and lock them down. So they will play games. They will fall down, they will dive, they will get a yellow card, they will score. All things being equal.
Yes.
And surprisingly, the player that Pep Guardiola is, banding towards that, we're able to see, is Raheem Sterling. I don't know why he thinks Sterling can make a difference against Real Madrid in this first leg.
Well, when you're a possession-heavy team, when you rely heavily on possession, as Man City does, as Barcelona do, you rely on pace, ability to switch from moving the ball slowly across the field from one side of the field to the other, and then creating a vertical, quick, incisive passing to the striker, to the wingers. And the pace allows you to stretch teams in the defense. That way you have plenty of opportunities to square the ball or cut it back, and those are the benefits of having a striker, a forward like Raheem Sterling. And obviously Pep Guardiola will continue to dumbfound tacticians around the world, because no one else is in his head and he overthinks so many aspects of the football that he wants his team to play. But the likes of Real Madrid, they do something that has been done since basically the dawn of football very, very well. They counterattack very, very well.
Sure.
They can, it's like a boxer who can take a punch.
But,
They will
but
hold
Real
you
Madrid
off.
has taught us in the past, matches that we have watched, that listen, we can stay with you. Counter-attack, we'll stay with you. We'll come at you, we'll come at you.
Yes.
You know, and you can't have players like Vinicius Jr. And the very cunning Karim Benzema. You can't be sure of what they will do or what they can do.
We don't
in
know
a game.
if, the truth is, we don't know. The best defender in the Man City squad is Ruben Diaz. We have no idea if he's going to play. And there's something to be said about a team that's so heavy on possession. It robs the defenders who might be individually brilliant, but it robs them of the practice sessions that they need to demonstrate what makes them special. They rely so heavily on possession. Most of the ball is played in the opposition's half. And when the opposition finally counters, it's like they're caught snoozing. And when that happens, the likes of John Stones, the likes of Laporta can be caught by the pace of Vinicius, by the good positioning of Rodrigo, and the ability, the endless, boundless ability of Karim Benzema to hold the ball, play the ball well with good passing routines with his striking partners, and to be told Benzema is in the form of his life.
He's like old wine.
And
okay, before we continue, don't forget that we're discussing a coach. Peseiro is being touted. We've got a list of foreign coaches to be the Super Eagles coach, and we're asking the question, do we need a foreign coach? If it's home-based, what do we really need, really? Peseiro?
And if it is Peseiro?
The call line is 0909 8408 408. 0909 8408 408. You can call. And let's talk about that. Okay, now let's look at Liverpool. Now, this case is a case of you are running with a toddler who just started to walk. And then you look behind you and it's right behind you and you are running very fast. Where did Villarreal come from? Wow.
I mean, Emery is, up until now, we've only known him to be very good, a master.
He beats Man U in the Europa League last
manager in Europa. But ignoring that is Europa, it's still Europe. And a lot of the teams that play in Europa have at different points played in Champions League. Even Barcelona played in Europa this season. So as long as we accept that these teams all bring European experience, pedigree, and value to the game, irregardless of which level, which tier of European football they're playing, it is still worth noting that this guy has been there, done it before, won it multiple times. Now, it shouldn't be too surprising that on this occasion, the tier of football he happens to be playing in is in Champions League. The real mess up, the only team that really messed up, I wouldn't say Juventus were too strong that we shouldn't have seen Villarreal beating them as a potential end result. But Bayern Munich haven't had the very best season. They might have just won their league, but their football has been lacking in certain quarters. There are questions being raised about their new manager, whether he's capable of raising their game to compete in European football every season as it's expected of a team that is so dominant in their league. Villarreal being where they are right now is by sheer grit, and Emery knows how to bring that out of teams. Unfortunately,
but Juventus lost their groove a long time ago when Ronaldo left. But this is a Villarreal who don't have any big names. No big names. But they're going up against Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, Diogo Jota, Firmino. With no big names, just like you said, sheer grit. Can they make it happen?
Yes, absolutely. They went up against a bunch of big names in Bayern Munich. They went up against a big name striker in Juventus, Vlahovic. It doesn't matter whether you have big names. If your football is
consistent,
indomitable, oppressive and overwhelming to the opposition, then you can do well. And if the players understand the setup, that's all it really needs. Once you have a couple gems, Danjuma is playing very well this season.
Sure.
Can we not accept that Danjuma was on the radar of Liverpool before they brought in Luis Diaz? That was one of the shortlisted options, a player that could potentially replace Sadio Mane. And the level of football he's showing right now, it's clear that he was worth taking a look at. When you have 1 or 2 stars in your team, even if they are enveloped up by the system, because the system is so good, it's so all-consuming, then even a Villarreal can beat a Liverpool. But Liverpool, they're the kings of the press, and there are very few teams that have...
always come at you. They always come at you.
There's very few teams that have an antidote to stopping Liverpool. Man City is one. Maybe Real Madrid.
Okay, ahead of tonight's match against Real Madrid, the Galacticos, Pep Guardiola. Well, Pep is saying a lot of things and says, okay, listen, I'm going to have to take these guys on and let's forget history. He wants to forget history now. He says his team will face Real Madrid in their Champions League semi-final first leg. Need to put aside the different European pedigrees of the two clubs and draw on their collective strength. Now, Real have won Europe's top trophy a record 13 times, while City remain in search of their first Champions League title after losing in the finals to Chelsea last year. There is some history that is in City's favor, however. 2 years ago, Guardiola's side knocked the current La Liga leaders out of the competition in the last 16 stage after winning both legs 2-1. City may have to take on Real without their first choice right-back Kyle Walker and central defender John Stones, who are both doubtful with injuries. Liverpool face Villarreal in the other semi-final at Anfield on Wednesday.
Well, if we have to compete with the history, we won't have any chance. They are better, so history speaks for itself. So, but we have the desire to compete against them. For us, play against Real Madrid is an incredible test and proof, and we wanna try it. We want to try it in suffer when we are going to suffer, and be together, stick together, and when we have the ball and when we can attack, try to do as best as possible. So it's an honor to be here as always in semifinals against, of course, Real Madrid, like would be Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Liverpool, teams like in our history in Europe have been many times. The last decade we are there, we start to be there, so it's an honor to be here. Try to do a good 2 games, tomorrow the first, and we'll see next week.
Last couple of games scored some, vital goals late on, but I said we have the players that's been in, high pressure games to know how to deal with them, and come tomorrow night, I think we'll be fine over the 2 legs. We can say them not having a game and us having a game is beneficial for us or beneficial for them, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to tomorrow night. Who's best prepared mentally, physically, and who wants it more, really. So what's happened in the previous week or so doesn't really matter to a sense.
Raheem Sterling, very optimistic there.
He says they wanted more. I doubt that. The truth is, they beat Real Madrid 2 years ago in the final 16, but the semi-finals isn't the final 16. And when champions get this close to the trophy, close enough that they can taste it, they don't let newcomers usurp them.
True that. Thank you very much, Mikhail. Thank you very much, Yomotayo. Yomotayo was behind the cameras. You can't see him, but he makes you see us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Debola. Thank you very much, David Davido. Thank you very much, Sunday Bideba. Thank you very much. That's all we can take on the show today. Thank you very much, Dio D1, downstairs in the powerhouse. My name is Wally Scott. Till tomorrow, like I always advise you at the end of every show, if not for anything, at least for your heart, do some sports. I leave you with Denver Nuggets, keeping their playoff hopes alive in the NBA.
An early post-up, double-teamed on the catch, and fouled immediately. Looney, certainly unintentional. And now Green and Gordon exchange. No team has ever come back from an 0-3 deficit. Joker Joker walks into the three, knocks it home. Joker again from downtown, got it! Island on the wing. Another three. You talked about it. Quickly up court. Another three. Bones! Butter! Corral that pass. They got a 2-on-1. Kuminga driving. Oh! Elevating, detonating. Jonathan Kuminga. Another timeout with a nice bucket. Thompson, quick release. What did you think was going to happen? Clay with 13 in the... Rivers. Into the corner, and Morris, man, he is starting to cook here. Now they corral Curry with the double. Got it! 4 on the floor for Steph. It's cool. Inside, Thompson with the midi. Got it. Jokic again. Step back three. Curry. Butter! He set off the smoke. Morris inside to Jokic, who finishes at the cup. Out front, working against Poole. Snakes the screen. Floater. Got it.
Wow. I think they were in a boxing one against us.
Is on the bench because it. Order triggers. Tried to lob it to Wiggins, and they give it away. Great defense by Austin Rivers. They tried to lob it on in game clock. Jokic on the roll, kicks it out. Barton for three, the dagger!
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
He suffered equally confessed.
Now 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, then go beat you. Now 2,500 and they pay.
According to Minister of State for Health, Dr. Olorunimbe Mamora, about 18 states in the Federation are still endemic, with more than 1,000 new leprosy cases yearly. He explained that the number of new leprosy cases detected yearly has significantly dropped from over 7,827 in 1994 to less than 2,000 in 2020. The Voice of Humanitarian Aid's Foundation took to the streets to march against the ostracization of people affected by leprosy and loud about changing the narrative. At her office, the National Coordinator of Voice of Humanitarian Aid's, Franca Emekobum, shared the group's experiences on the field with people affected by leprosy.
Even we that are even speaking up for them, sometimes, it wasn't easy for our families and our friends to even accept, that what we are doing is not risky. They are even afraid to come close to me. They're scared. They say, oh, no. We don't want you and your leprosy people, please.
Franca maintained that discriminating against the people with leprosy in itself is a deadly disease.
Already they are in pain. Already they are in sorrow. We should not add to that sorrow by discriminating against them. Rather, we should, come together as, people of God, one nation, one love, one family.
Dr. Yohen Akase is the head of infectious diseases at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Luth. He confirmed that leprosy is not contagious.
With leprosy, the truth of the matter is that over 90% of people, in fact that's a conservative estimate to be honest, but over 90% of people who get exposed to leprosy are not going to have leprosy. Okay? So yes, it's not such a contagious infectious disease in the context of how we look at contagion, that if somebody has leprosy, touches you, you're going to get leprosy. In fact, it's well known that there are a certain, for lack of a better word, genetic predispositions to getting, not everybody is going to get leprosy, even if they get exposed to that. Picking somebody who has already had a deformity at that time to keep him isolated, apart from the fact that it's not interrupting the chain of transmission, it has, like you said, it entrenches the concept of stigma, denies them of being productive, being rehabilitated and getting on with their lives, living a normal life as possible. And also, generally, doesn't achieve much, to be honest.
Jim Mohammed is a survivor of leprosy. He was affected at the age of 19 when he gained admission into Ahmadu Bello University, but could not continue his studies.
That was 1999, the first time I just detected that I got a leprosy, because I don't even know that it's a leprosy before. I was just told that I have some patches in my body, which I was just thinking that it's just be a ringworm. They are calling it a las egedomi. And I went to some people that are selling the herbs, that okay, I need the herbs for this thing, and they give it to me, and I'm using it. After using it, I don't even see any changes. That is why my mom just took me to one herbalist, which we are calling Babalawo, and the man just said that this one is leprosy.
The father of 3 recalled how he battled with discrimination.
During that time, I have some challenges with some maybe neighbors, even in where I'm living with my mom. One of the person that, the owner of the house, because we rented that house by then, we just said that this one we have to take it outside, because his father has house. Definitely you should go to his father's house. Don't let me lie to you. My faith is not solid by then, because I was just thinking, asking God, why me?
The survivor is the chairman of the Association of People Affected with Leprosy and the PRO of the national body. He is particular about ensuring that nobody with leprosy ends up as a beggar on the streets.